Greetings, fellow investors. Welcome to the Financial Podcast and another episode of As or Asset. Today we're talking about vacation homes, and my name, of course, is Lucas.
And my name is Marcus.
Marcus, why don't you first tell us what a liability is?
All right, we can start with that. A liability is, and this is according to Investopedia, a liability is something a person or company owes, usually a sum of money. Liabilities are settled over time through the transfer of economic benefits, including money, goods, or services. Recorded on the right side of the balance sheet, liabilities include loans, accounts payables, mortgages, deferred revenues, bonds, warranties, and accrued expenses. But in general, I would summarize liabilities as being something that will not generate you any cash flow and most likely will actually take money out of your pocket to sustain itself, so to speak. So it's a cash drain, so to speak.
Cash eater,
Yeah, cash eater.
monster.
Enemy.
When you hear
Enemy.
liability, that's what we want you to think. Enemy must be destroyed.
Yes, must be destroyed.
Okay, so an asset then on the other hand is like an angel. An asset can be thought of as something that in the future can generate cash flow, reduce expenses or improve sales, regardless of whether it's manufacturing equipment or a patent. So again, you can think of it as something that generates cash flow for you, positive, mind you. So it gives you money.
Yeah, either a cash flow or something other that is beneficial to you.
Yeah, so it leaves you with more money than it found you with. So a
Mm.
cash angel or a money angel.
Yeah, or I would say an ally, an ally
Yeah, an
of the
ally.
cause.
So we have the cash devil and we have the cash angel, asset
Mm.
and liability. So moving on to vacation homes and how they fit into this asset or liability discussion. Well, first of all, of course, when you have a vacation home, I think we're going to start with the negatives actually,
Mm-hmm.
because it's going to be quite expensive to buy it, so you're most likely going to have to take a loan, and these loans tend to have a higher mortgage associated with them.
Mm-hmm.
So the mortgage you take out on a vacation home is going to be higher.
Yeah, I think especially here in Finland, for instance, that is very true because you usually get a lot of benefits, especially when you buy your first house or property. Meanwhile, if you try to buy a summer home or something like that, then you will get none of the benefits because this is not a necessary purchase you're making. This is just something extra. So usually you end up with no benefits from either the state or from somewhere else. And I would imagine that the same rules applies in most places in the world. That you might get some benefit at least for buying like property that you are intending of living in or using somehow. While if you buy just a vacation home, then you might have to almost consider it as a consumer loan.
Another problem, if you decide that you want to rent it out to try to turn it into an asset, because that's something you can do, because many things are can be both. They can be both an asset and a liability at the same time. For example, a house, you take out a loan. In that way, it's a liability, but it also reduces your living expenses, hopefully, making it an asset. Or you can alternatively rent it out. If you buy an apartment and rent it out, it's going to become an asset, but it's also a liability while you're paying off the loan. So,
Mm.
in that sense, these things can be both, but then you have to determine how can I leverage a liability to make it an asset? Can I do that? Should I even try to do that? So that's part of why we are making this series. So it's going to be easier for you to determine that. Sorry, returning to my point. In the case of a vacation home, if you want to try to turn it into an asset and rent it out, in many cases it's going to be a lot more difficult because people always need somewhere to live, but they might not want to stay at the place you're renting out just
Yeah.
for vacation.
Like a good example would be, for instance, if you have a place by maybe the beach here in Finland, for instance. One half of the year it can be sunny weather and you can swim there and everything is nice. But then winter comes and suddenly nobody wants to stay in your cabin when there is no heater and everything is covered with like 1.5 meters of snow. So you can only rent it out half of the year. So it's actually just an asset half of the year and liability the other half of the year.
Yeah, and if it's a vacation home, you probably want to stay there during that half of the year when you can rent it out. So
Yeah, so it can definitely be both, but it can be troublesome depending on where it is.
Yeah,
Meanwhile, if you
yeah.
have a house, for instance, people might just want to live there for a fixed amount of time or until they move on. So that's a very good investment in that sense, that they will probably live there maybe even years and years and not just come and go like they would maybe in a vacation house.
I would just like to take a moment as well to say that we realize that we're a bit ridiculous because I don't think most people approach buying a vacation home as an investment because it really isn't. It's more of something. It's as you said when you talked about the loans, it's more of a
Mm,
consumer decision that this is something I want for myself.
exactly.
The idea of this series is that we try to find value where you might think that there is none, or then the
Mm,
opposite, to discredit things that are normally said to be, oh, this is a great investment. Maybe it isn't, as we found out with houses, it can really be both.
mm,
So just that's why we really try to look at it from an investment perspective, even though most people don't, and we realize that. But just to try to really get all the details,
yeah, and
figure
I
out.
think that it would be a good segue then to go over to, we have one final negative before we go into the positives,
Mm-hmm.
and that's of course maintenance, which you have to pay on a
Mm-hmm.
house also.
Yeah.
Vacation houses might be even more difficult because you might not be on location to fix things yourself. So you
Yeah.
will either have to hire someone or know someone close to the vicinity of the vacation home you have that can fix different things. I mean, once again, we return to Finland with the problem that there might be a lot of snow, for instance, and in some cases you might actually have to remove the snow from either uh, the ground or the, how should I say, at least the roof. You might have to remove it from the roof, or it might cave in, and this might be very
Yeah.
difficult for you if you live like 300 kilometers from your vacation home. So you just have to go there, and if it has snowed a lot, you just have to remove the snow. The same is true of
And just yeah. I'm sorry. Continue.
well, and the same is of course true maybe in the US, for instance, where there is a hurricane approaching. If you have a
Mm.
vacation home and there might be a hurricane coming, this might be very bothersome for you too, and stuff like this. So natural
Yeah, we've had
disasters, everything like that.
yeah we've had for now with the pandemic. I've talked to many Swedes
Mm,
due to my work, which that all have like vacation homes uh, in different parts of Finland, and it's been basically impossible for them to get to it now after the winter to check on it
mm.
because you can't get in to the country due to the pandemic. So things like this wouldn't be as much of a problem if you would just buy a
A house
somewhere
close by
closer.
you, for instance. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, you can purchase a vacation home close to you and rent it out, for instance, which I guess a lot of people do in tourist resorts and stuff like that. But then you probably might want to do the maintenance yourself. I know I heard one expert in retail said that he didn't want to really buy a lot of, well, he wasn't expert. Well, I would actually say an expert. He said that he don't want to purchase real estate, which is further away, that he can't do most of the maintenance on them himself, because then it becomes so troublesome to fix stuff that is broken, see how things are working out, stuff like that. I mean, that's not
Mm.
applicable to every situation, especially if you live on the country or something like that. But I guess that it definitely could be the case if you live, for instance, in a city. You can still purchase vacation homes, say that you live in the central city, but you have vacation homes by the beach. You can still easily go there and fix things that might be broken or stuff like that. But if you live in the city and have a vacation home in the other side of the country, it might be very difficult to go and fix something that is broken. So you might have to hire someone to fix it, and even then, you can't even be really sure that it's fixed unless you go there yourself and see that it is indeed fixed,
Mm.
which might be very difficult. But maybe
Yeah.
we should move over to the more positive side now that we have mentioned basically everything that is negative about this.
Yeah, so again, even though it might be difficult to rent out, you definitely can rent it out and maybe at a higher fee. For example, Airbnb is
Mm.
something that would be very possible to take advantage of in this
Mm-hmm.
case. People who are looking for somewhere to go on a vacation.
Yeah.
Vacation homes are good for
And
that.
and I also know that it's fairly common sometimes for people to. I know, for instance, one of my cousin lived in a place where she had to move out over the summer because then the person actually came to the residence and wanted to live there. But the rest of the year she used it as a like a rental property. So she used it as a vacation home for like the summer and then she left and rented it out. But this was of course in the city. But you can do this in the city too, I guess, that you have a vacation home in a city which you just want to use maybe for the summer or so, and the rest of the time,
Yeah,
if it's possible, you will rent it out, for instance, which is a
yeah,
pretty good idea actually.
yeah. You can. Yeah, absolutely. And then of course you can use it for leisure activities. And if you tend to travel a lot, and this helps you maybe not travel as much, it could
uh,
be good both for the environment and for your wallet.
I thought so too, but you could definitely do it also that say we bought like a place in Sweden, for instance, because we might go to Sweden a lot. So we're figuring, well, we're going to Sweden a lot anyways. Why are we not buying a place there that we rent out for a lot of the time? But when we go there, we have somewhere to stay, for instance. I mean, you
Mm,
can definitely also not rent it out and just own it all the time. But then we definitely kind of get into liability territory, I think, because you're just paying for it. Well, you have a place to stay, but it will probably be
yep,
pretty expensive to just buy a
yep,
place to stay at some times of the year, for instance.
yeah,
But I mean, that's fairly common too, but mainly for very rich people, I think.
yeah. And then similar to houses, depending on the location, it's something that could appreciate.
Hmm.
The location might increase in value, uh, especially if you have it in the family for a long time, for example.
I just wanted to mention that you really shouldn't underestimate how important, how much the appreciation can be. Because you could, for instance, own a cabin by a mountain, say, or something like that, and it has no value
Mm.
at first or anything. But over time, maybe people find out this mountain is really good for skiing or something like that, and a skiing resort props up over there, and all of a sudden, a lot of people are going to this place. Then over time, this lot could become really expensive because they're maybe building up stuff all around it, and suddenly this lot is very attractive for people that want to go skiing there every year or something like that. So it's kind of similar. Like I know some real estate traders have spoken that you should try to find areas which will be, so to speak, hot in the future. I mean, I think it's way too hard for me, but I guess you could do the same with vacation homes. That you would try to find somewhere where that could be done and do it. But I think you probably just want to stick with actual like home real estate in that case. I would guess that's safer. But it's definitely a
Uh,
possibility that you could find a place which will become a great tourist resort, but probably not in 2020 because of Corona and stuff.
yeah, I agree. So let's closing argument. This
Hmm.
isn't a trial, but it's a trial for if a vacation home is an as or asset.
In our
I'm
opinion.
gonna start. Yeah, in our opinion, I'm gonna start and say no. I don't think it is. I think it's a consumer, something you buy because you want it. If you would actually want to invest, you would invest in an apartment or a home and rent it out because it's safer. It's easier to find someone who wants to rent it. You could probably charge even higher, even though you might find some great location for your vacation home.
Mm.
Maybe the
Uh,
competition is going to be lower if you do an Airbnb for it because of the location again, but I don't know. This is what I believe. I might be wrong on this, but I feel like it's a liability more than an asset.
I completely actually agree with you. There is even a saying here in Finland that it's a show of ultimate luxury that you can purchase a second house just to have like a few times in the year to
Yeah,
watch the beach or watch the sea from. And I tend actually to agree, especially when you put it that way, is that you don't really need this asset, so to speak. And most people don't rent it out. Most people don't even use it a lot for storage or anything like this. It's just an extra place that you can be at if you're tired of your home, so to speak, for a while, or if it's the nature is particularly good in this area. But in general, I think I tend to agree with you a lot on the part where it's probably easier just to make money in like normal real estate instead, like where people
Yeah,
actually want to live the whole year for a fixed amount of time, or until the contract runs its course, which is way safer than renting out vacation homes. I think that's
yeah,
mainly in that case something that maybe a business should be considered doing, like rent out vacation homes.
yeah, I agree. But with that, I think we've proved that we don't know what we're talking about once again, but we do our best to give you some things to consider for sure, and then you can do more research yourself.
So with that, please comment down below. Maybe you don't agree with us or can add something to the discussion.
So with that, if you like the video, please like it, subscribe. We try to post more content like this every week. I'm sorry, I'm tired. I might cut this out, I might not. I don't know what I'm doing anymore.